Hi folks, with Tassos today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about Gandhi and particularly his views on freedom and liberty and national consciousness and so on, and try and understand that Gandhi believed, or at least he asserted, that the only reason that the Indians were able to gain the freedoms and liberties that they did under the tutelage of the British was because the British system allowed for so many freedoms and liberties and rule of law and so on. So in a very backhanded, indirect way, Gandhi was saying that because the British people and the people in the empire are so free, relatively, compared to others and other empires and other places and so on, because they're so free, we have that taste of freedom and liberty, and it's just enough to make us want more and make us want pursue total freedom and liberty. But if we didn't have that beginning point, which was already on a relative basis, again, a high point, then we probably wouldn't have done it, and we probably wouldn't even have wanted it or pursued it. And remember that the liberty that the Indian middle class, or the poorer classes had before the British arrived, the liberties they had there were about zero. So the amount of liberties the peasants had when the British were there was more than they'd ever had previously. So that was Gandhi's point, or among the points he made. But again, he keeps coming back to this in his writings. It's only because the British offer so many liberties that we wanted more, and we were able to pursue a degree of political activism that would have been unthinkable or impossible in anywhere else in the world. It's only because of the British system that we had any form of political expression. And that's an interesting point there, particularly conceded by Gandhi, who was, as we all know, is a major player. I also come back to Gandhi not because I have any particular affection or respect for the subject of Gandhi or for the man himself. I don't perceive him as a great man, but it's because schools in the West and Australia in particular, I think, again, because there are so many Indians that have been allowed to come into Australia through the mass migration program. Gandhi, even in schools where there's whites only, Gandhi and Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King are the three big heroes that the straight white school children are supposed to be worshipping. So if you meant to pick three heroes, historical heroes over the last 100 or so years, it's nearly every school, even the private schools where parents are stumping up a lot of cash to educate their kids in the ways of the world. They're strongly encouraged to only pick non-white heroes, and B, disparage white history and white heroes and white characters of history. They're all fascists and Nazis and so on, whereas these brown and black people are just morally superior, spiritually pure, and so on, Gandhi being among these. So let's just have a little look at Gandhi. Now, the history of Gandhi is a bit difficult to get your head around some of it. His father was quite a heavyweight player in the local political scene. So Gandhi was born into, if you like, quite a privileged position. It was an arranged marriage with people from the same caste and, the Gujarat caste and the same tribe. And so Gandhi had, he didn't have any, he had no, if you like, interaction with women at all, other than his mother, who seems to be quite domineering certainly from what you read, and her piety and her fasting when she didn't get her own way and this sort of stuff is a pattern that Gandhi employed later on. He was constantly fasting when he didn't get what he wanted politically, and that was very much borrowing from his mother's behavior there. So here we've got Gandhi as a small, sort of this scrawny small kid. He's got no friends. He's got no purpose in life. He sort of wanders around. Apparently he was quite cruel to animals. And no interaction with women, shy to the point where he he barely was unable to talk to other people. And he went to a law school, some 10th grade law school in India. And apparently the family ran out of money. His father died when he was 16 or 17. It's not clear whether they were well provided for, the family. I don't know. But Gandhi was apparently stopped law school because he didn't have any money. Then immediately after that, this is because he's got no money to attend this very cheap law school in India. He then suddenly has enough money to go to England to study law in England and go to university there and do all the things and then do additional studies. He joins various groups such as vegetarian groups that tie vegetarianism with moral purity and things like that in England. And suddenly he's wearing these really sharp suits and getting around. So a guy who's got no money in India goes to England and seems to be swimming in money. I don't follow that, meeting all the costs in a place that would be infinitely more expensive than India to live. And he seems to be living very well and again dressing very well and so on. So he goes back to India. Then he gets a pretty cozy job from a relative who's got a trading business. There was a lot of Indians had trading companies in Africa, South Africa, and along that African east coast, because it's not that bigger journey from the Indian west coast to the African east coast. So he gets a job as a lawyer for this family member in South Africa. And he arrives there, like he's graduated with a law degree somehow. This penniless Indian who's supposedly penniless has graduated from, got a law degree. And it's hard to work out how, when you look at his concept or his understanding of the law and how to apply it, he sees it very much as a racial issue and very, very much an ideological issue rather than one of actual law. Or codified law. So how he managed to get his law degree through the English bar is quite beyond me. But anyway, he gets it, goes to South Africa and to represent his in a legal case they have. Now here's an interesting insight into sort of the Indian mentality. The Indian, this is a trading firm, an Indian trading firm with Gandhi's cousin or a family relative. But the relative decides that they can only have a lawyer from the Gujarat caste, so the actual Indian caste that they come from, and it can only be from the village that they originally come from. It has to be a relative, and very, very much the Indian mindset here. So straight away, this is not an issue of the law. If you don't trust anyone from outside of your caste or your family, but or can't rely on them in your own cognizance, but they don't see it as a matter of law. The issue should be if this in this law case that his relative, Gandhi's relative, wants him to represent. We've got this lawyer with no fucking experience, none, zip, who's going to represent. So he sees the family see this as it's a racial issue, it's a tribal issue, it's a family issue, it's not a legal issue. Therefore, it must be an ideological issue, and this is very much Gandhi's view of the law. It's all ideological, it's all racial, it's all where it's not. The law is a clearly codified law. Gandhi does concede this in the years to come. It's only because the British laws were precise and codified that allows, okay, this is what they will do because the British have to abide by the law. Therefore, this is what we can do to do this and achieve that. So he assumed that the rules would apply to them, the British or the white people. He believed that they've got codified, they will follow those codified laws, whereas we have much more freedom to move because we will interpret those laws ideologically rather than the precise words of the law. So very much what we see today in the lawfare against Trump and all sorts of things in divorce courts, rape courts, you name it, a very ideological interpretation of the law. So the straight white guy, he better conform to the fucking law, but we've got the flexibility and freedom to do whatever we want because we see it from an ideological point of view, which always puts the person that believes in the law at a disadvantage because they see the codified law as the law. This is what it is, whereas the other side, of course, doesn't. And Gandhi was doing this, in the early 1900s. So Gandhi talks about his supposed mistreatment at the hands of evil white racists in South Africa, which at the time was run by the British. This was before the formal apartheid era came in with the Boer or the Dutch Afrikaans government later on in the 1940s. Now Gandhi claims that he was minding his own business, just walking along the road, and evil white people beat him up and kicked him into the gutter and spat on him. White fascist Nazis everywhere. Then he was on a train and he got thrown out there, beaten up by evil white Nazis, and on it went. So he was constantly referring to this. Now, Gandhi, if anything, was someone who would remember this. This is a guy, he can't get on with anybody. He's this lost soul looking for a purpose in life in his 20s, and so he's wanting to be as provocative as possible, but in a covert way. So if the sign said that white people only walk along this side of the road, for example, walk along this side of the road, and brown people and black people walk on the other side of the road, or in this part of the sidewalk, or some sort of prohibition there. He would walk in the white only area. He would purposely walk and he would do so in front of a policeman. There's a policeman, there's the white only area. I'll walk right into that policeman in the white area. Oh no, the policeman pushed me out the way and told me to get onto the other side. The policeman told me 10 times to go onto the other side. I refused to do it. So then the policeman pushed me over there. That's it. What a racist, what a Nazi. I'm a victim. So Gandhi was always orchestrating these sort of situations, always doing it. I mean, he just could not do it. And so then he had his raw material for, look, see, the racists. Things happen today when you get activists that are looking for a racist incident. Well, we're only stopping the traffic because we're saving the planet from oil. And then those evil white Nazi fascist policemen did such and such to it. And we weren't doing anything. We were saving the planet. That sort of same attitude is what we see today, and this is what Gandhi was doing back then. Gandhi then, after spending, I think, about 20 years or so in South Africa, all the time he says how terrible and evil and bad and it is, but he spends 20 years there, has children there. Why for so bad would you do that? Is the guy looking for trouble? Is he looking for something to complain about? Is he wanting to invent confrontation? Otherwise wouldn't occur if he didn't go out brazenly looking for it. So the pattern of his behavior is already there. Now, Gandhi then moves back to India and then becomes part of the activism around Indian nationalism and Indian independence. Now, it goes back and forth. So it's hard, Gandhi doesn't seem to have a program. He doesn't seem to have policies that are clear and coherent and so on. So, let's get rid of the British. Okay, what then? Shit, I don't know. Whatever. So there's some things when you look at Gandhi's toing and froing. For example, he says Indians should stop speaking English, should not learn English, and should not speak English. We should only speak our local Hindu languages. Okay, well, that's a thing. How will that help? And Gandhi believes, he went to and fro on this, but Gandhi asserts that to learn English was, tantamount to speaking the language of the devil. So if you wanted to have or achieve moral purity, you had to speak Hindu. And if you didn't, then you were really inviting or accepting or acknowledging the supremacy of the British or another race. It didn't matter who it was. Whereas, you speak Hindu, then you have the moral supremacy and make them speak your language, not the other way around. He also had other views that seemed insane, given the industrialization of Britain and the Western world at the time, was that Indians shouldn't use machines or any sort of mechanization. They should be, and this was a moral purity issue again, as Gandhi perceived it, where you should be as close as possible to the natural order of things. So you pick the cotton yourself, you weave it by hand, and then you fashion it into clothing as in the manner of, say, a pre-industrial artisan. And that not only gives more jobs to Indians, but in Gandhi's view, the machines were the equipment of the devil, and to fashion clothes and weave cotton or fabric yourself, then you were closer to the essence of moral purity. So this was something Gandhi constantly pushed. Now, it's sort of Gandhi's misunderstanding of the world here, as I perceive it at least, was the British were buying the raw cotton from India and turning it into fabric and indeed clothing in the English factories and exporting it back to India. Even in the late 1800s, early 1900s, textiles was still quite a big business in Britain. Now, the British textile factories, fabric factories, they were the most efficient in the world at the time by quite a long shot. So Indians could buy clothing made in British factories that were better made, more consistent. They could buy those clothes for less than it would cost if a local Indian cloth merchant or somebody made the clothing. So So Gandhi was saying, well, screw don't sell your fabric to the British, make it by hand yourself. And so Indian peasants and you will pay double for an inferior quality product than they would if they bought the British product. This he sees in the wider essence of nationalism, and again, this moral purity, which his perceptions, at least of it, crisscross through his political sort of considerations and nationalistic considerations. But again, Gandhi comes back to this, and it's the central point of this essay. Gandhi comes back to acknowledging or accepting that only because the British have codified laws, only because they have freedoms and liberties established in their series of laws, and that the Indians benefit from this, it's only because of that we could go as far as we could with the independence movement and have the British tolerate it, and elements of British society and the body politic support it and assist us. So now as soon as the British left, and the British, in I think it was 1947, as soon as the British left India, mayhem ensued, with religious and various sectarian sort of mayhem, political mayhem as well. The British had always warned of this, saying, well, when we arrived in India hundreds of years ago, the place was a patchwork of civil war based on, well, just greed and corruption, but also religion and caste warfare and so on. And, particularly in the Punjab, which seemed to be forever at war or going through internal strife. So the British said, once our administration is taken off from this, then the place will descend into chaos, which indeed it did. So Gandhi's vision of an independent India would be morally pure and would be much better off, and we can hold our heads high. We're not the inferior class anymore. That was totally torn to pieces, because other than Gandhi's title, Mahatma, being like a spiritual leader, other than that, the Brahmins just moved back in, took control, and started exploiting the peasants, just as they had before the British were there. And similarly, the court system that the British had installed, the rule of law, that pretty much fell by the wayside and went into the same sort of places you had to be the caste, the family, the region, the tribe, the village, and then ideology on top of that. So did India's position improve? Well, no, but Gandhi is today seen as this great hero only because he was anti-white, not because he achieved or produced or created anything worthwhile. Just a lost soul, a drifter looking for a purpose in life and fell into this. That's all it was. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.